All right, today we're jumping into a fantastic digital detective story. It's all based on an investigation by SEO expert Lily Ray. And trust me, it's a classic whodunit. But instead of a crime scene, we've got Google search results. And our victims? Some of the biggest websites on the internet.
So here's the mystery. Back in January 2026, a bunch of major online brands just tanked. Their visibility on Google took a sudden, massive nosedive. One day, they were on top of the world. The next, they were practically invisible. The big question is, why?
And here's our first piece of evidence. Just look at this chart. This is a well-known $8 billion brand. And that's not a gentle dip. That is a 49% drop straight off a cliff. We're talking about a catastrophe, which tells you just how high the stakes are in this whole story.
And get this, it wasn't a one-off thing. Not at all. Another huge player saw a 43% drop. A third one? Down 42%. When you see numbers like this lining up, you know it's not a bunch of weird accidents. You're looking at a clear pattern. Something targeted these sites, and it hit them hard all at once.
Okay, so we've got our victims, and we've seen the damage. Now it's time to unmask our prime suspect, because it turns out all of these sites had one very specific thing in common, a very popular content strategy they were all using.
Let's give our suspect a name, the self-promotional listicle. The idea is actually pretty simple and kind of sneaky. A company puts out an article called, say, the best CRM software, and when you click on it, well, guess who they rank as number one? Themselves, of course. It looks like an objective review, but it's really just putting themselves at the top of the podium.
So you might be wondering, if this tactic was so risky, why was it so darn popular? What was the motive? Well, for a very long time, the rewards were just too good to pass up.
I mean, this tactic was a powerhouse. It worked beautifully for traditional Google search rankings. It had a huge influence on those new AI overviews you see at the top of the page, and it perfectly captured anyone searching for the best of anything. All you had to do was slap the current year on the title, and boom, it looked fresh and people trusted it. It was the ultimate shortcut.
But here is the massive catch, and our investigator, Lily Ray, summed it up perfectly. It works until it doesn't. And that's the theme for so many of these gray area SEO tricks, isn't it? They give you this incredible boost, but the whole time you're standing on shaky ground. Sooner or later, the game changes.
Okay, so we have our victims, we have our prime suspect. Now it's time to connect the dots. Let's head to the digital crime scene and look at the hard evidence, case by case.
Our first case file, let's call them Exhibit A. This is that multi-billion-dollar company we saw at the beginning. A huge, successful brand that looked like it was doing everything by the book.
And just to remind you of the scale here, this is the damage we're talking about. Almost half of their visibility. Just poof, gone. In the blink of an eye.
And here it is, the smoking gun. A quick search of their company blog turned up 191 articles where they named themselves number one in a best of list. 191. That's not a coincidence, my friends. That is a strategy. Okay, let's move on. Let's see how this case builds. Exhibit B is another major software as a service company that also saw its search traffic suddenly just collapse.
For them, the hit was a 43% drop in visibility. Again, a devastating blow that seemed to come out of absolutely nowhere.
So the investigators dug into their website, and what did they find? 228 of these self-serving articles. That's even more than our first case. You can see where this is going. The evidence is just piling up.
And for our final case file, we've got a super popular software product. I'm sure you've heard of them. They were a huge success story, just seeing incredible growth from search traffic.
But then, bam, the pattern repeats. A sudden 34% drop, completely wiping out all their recent gains.
And here is the final and honestly, the most jaw-dropping piece of evidence. This company had 340 articles on its blog where it ranked its own product as number one. 340. At this point, the connection between the tactic and the penalty is, well, it's just undeniable.
Now, here's what's so interesting. This kind of spectacular rise and fall isn't really new. It's actually part of a much bigger story, a predictable pattern that has played out over and over again in the world of search.
Lily Ray calls this the cycle of SEO, and it goes something like this. Step 1, a clever new tactic pops up. Step 2, everybody starts using it because, hey, it works. Step 3, it creates this gold rush of traffic and visibility. And then, Step 4,
Google eventually catches on and shuts it down, penalizing everyone who relied on it. This cycle is the engine driving our entire story.
And today, the consequences are so much bigger than they used to be. It's not just about disappearing from a list of search results anymore. If you have low visibility in Google, it means you're also going to be ignored by all the AI tools that use Google for their information. So the penalty now echoes across the whole digital world.
So, after looking at all the evidence and understanding the motive, what's the final verdict in our digital detective story? What's the real lesson here?
It really all comes down to a choice between two different paths. On one side, you have the short-term hacks, right? The self-promotion, the misleading titles, the reviews with no real proof. And on the other side, you've got a strategy built for the long haul. Content that's based on actual experience, that's transparent, and that provides real, demonstrable value. I think this whole episode shows us which path actually lasts.
And all this leaves us with one last, really important question. The next time you type best into that search bar and you get that perfectly organized list, just take a second and ask yourself, who actually wrote this? What was their motive? And who are you really trusting?